Hi, I'm George K. This is my father Niels.
Hi.
Welcome back to another episode of Father and Synthesizer. Today we have a bit of a different episode than usual because we won't have a sound demo or a studio video from me. Because today we'd like to present and show to you our Quantum FS mono synthesizer. This is the most ambitious project we have ever undertaken
So far.
With this we're stretching the very limits of what's possible with our DIY setup without buying more expensive tools and going to China for production and things like that. Because I'm sure you're all curious, let's start off with the features of this monosynth. First we have the analog part, and that starts off with three 3340 oscillators. They are switchable with an octave switch, they have fine-tuning, pulse width modulation, vibrato, and you can switch between external pulse width modulation or the LFO. Then we have the two filters, which are both 3320 filters. Nothing special about them very much. They're just the filters that we have used a few times now, and they're very small.
One low pass, one high pass.
Yeah. Then we have an analog envelope, that's envelope 3 here.
It's a full-blown ADSR.
Then we have one analog LFO.
Right, and we do have two VCAs.
Yeah, the two Ray Wilson VCAs and two dirty VCAs.
So in total 4 VCAs.
Then we have a voltage-controlled sample and hold, which can also be used as a bit crusher. We have shown off that effect before on the channel. Then we have the mixer, which is not much electronically, but a lot on the faceplate. There's 8 potentiometers with each having a mute switch, and the noise is switchable between white and pink. Then in the output stage we have a modded DS1, Boss DS1 distortion pedal. Then we have an analog glide, which we are calling Aftertouch here because we're doing some digital trickery, kind of like a 5th analog output on the STM. You'll see it in action. And then of course we have the sub-octaves for oscillators 2 and 3. So you can have the sound of almost 5 oscillators on this one synthesizer.
So looking forward to hear that.
Yeah, that's gonna sound fat. I'd also like to mention that the entire synth is split into analog and digital, and for the digital part we're just using our normal STM Essential, which, by the way, we are planning to get made in China very soon. Depending on the coronavirus situation, we'll see how fast we can have them in stock. Yeah. I'll be sure to update you guys on the subreddit, and maybe we'll even make a short video once we have them on sale. They won't be too expensive, you'll be able to buy one and have fun. And then we come to the digital part, which starts off with the MIDI to CV interface, obviously, because how else would you play it? Then we have the 2 envelopes. You see there, they're switchable between envelope 1 and 2, and they're also loopable, so you can get some really cool effects out of them. These are not loopable as in triggered with a set rate, but every time the end of the release cycle is reached, they will reset from the attack cycle to the attack. Then we have an LFO, it's syncable to MIDI clock, just like the one we have in the modular synth upstairs, the one we presented a little while ago. And then my personal favorite feature is the built-in key step, because we took my old key step and just screwed it to the base plate. But this turns a module into an actual instrument that you can just turn on and play. You can have some immediate feedback when you play it, and that was very important to us, to build something that you can actually play.
Yeah, as a standalone device.
Now to our original plan, that was to have this whole synthesizer on a single PCB.
Right. And no. The size of the PCB is what was really stretching the limits of our equipment here at home. And
it's so big.
It is really huge.
Almost the size of an A4. Yeah. So as you can see, it's really large.
It was a challenge to build this PCB. Exposing, etching, drilling, put all the parts on there, and the final stage was debugging the whole circuit. A real lot of work. And this was supposed to be originally the only PCB, but in the end we've decided to split it because some things called for it and some things just didn't fit. For example, the distortion circuit is on a separate PCB,
And for the switchable octaves on the oscillators, you need a reference voltage. And we built the Ray Wilson one, and that had to be on a separate PCB as well because it didn't fit anymore.
Yeah. I had to modify that circuit a little bit.
Because we're doing 7 switchable octaves from 0 to 6.
Yeah, and the Ray Wilson's octave switch only has one output, but for the 3 oscillators, I needed 3 outputs, so I added a few more output stages so that they don't interfere with each other.
And then Niels, tell me please, did you have any trouble getting the main board up and running?
As expected, I did.
But not as much as usual. This was a fairly trouble-free build.
Yeah, it was surprisingly.
For the most part.
Yeah, it went surprisingly well.
That's 2 years of experience for you.
True. I took the time and examined the PCB after etching and coating with a real huge magnifying glass. So I was able to find all these little copper bridges that need to be cut away, and
there are some tiny pathways on that PCB.
Yeah, we had to go through 2 pins of an integrated circuit, which is difficult. And then we found shortcuts like the little wire pieces of copper you have to cut away, and I also found one interrupted wire. Yeah, one interrupted path which are fixed with a piece of wire. But that's all. Actually, the PCB behaved well.
For the most part.
For the most part, and
then you came to the noise generator. You wouldn't expect this to be that much trouble. It's just noise, right?
Mm-hmm. It's usually. My habit is, if I do such a project, I bring the noise generator first into life.
Because that's what you did on the very first synth.
Yeah, it's a kind of a tradition.
Yeah, and this is our continuation of that specific synth.
Right.
So we had to start with a noise generator.
And we do get noise out of that. Beautiful. But there was a weird humming, low frequency noise overlaid with the noise generator.
It almost sounds like a pulse width modulation on the ground frequency, on the 50 hertz.
Yeah, so I scratched my head and I was debugging the circuit
for days,
but couldn't find anything that's wrong. So I said, okay, let's get it to the back of the backlog and continue with other nice things like the oscillators. And the oscillators, we could get to work pretty fast. There was one problem with the third voice. I didn't get any square output out of that oscillator.
And that's pretty important.
Yeah, but I found the bug. And the reason was that a resistor with a value of 240 kilo ohms was actually having 240 ohms, which is a factor of 1,000 less.
Yeah, so when you buy cheap resistors from China, make sure to occasionally measure them.
Yeah. So
this was just one 240 ohm that had fallen into a 240k bag.
Right. I know that for sure because I don't have any 240 ohms anywhere in the house. I never bought them.
So it must have been a factory mistake.
Good advice. If you buy cheap parts, measure them before you put them somewhere on your PCB. I was having a problem to buy leaded solder wire.
Because of some EU regulation.
Mm-hmm. And I know in the industry they use unleaded, but
they don't have people soldering it.
Yeah, they have machines and they all have the equipment for that. But as a DIY guy, you were allowed to use leaded solder. So I bought myself a new roll of unleaded solder and I started to work with that on the Quantum FS. And actually there were 2 spots where this unleaded solder built a little hair or something that contacted the next pad.
So
short.
Short.
A short, yeah.
So
So,
unleaded solder.
yeah.
Damn EU wanting us to not be in contact with harmful substances.
Well,
We've
I can recommend for everyone out there, do not use unleaded solder. Just don't use it.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Just make sure you work in a ventilated space.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was happy enough to get my hands on a roll of leaded solder again, so I was able to continue the build of the PCB.
And as you have seen in the little clips I showed earlier, we have a really nice colorful faceplate this time round. We made this with color printer, glue and acrylic lacquer, but we'll go into more detail about that in the next episode, which will also be about the Quantum FS. Hopefully we'll have gotten a few sounds out of it by then, so I can make a short demo.
Right.
No promises though. It's a DIY project, who knows how far we'll be in 2 weeks.
True.
So thank you very much for watching. We hope to see you again in 2 weeks for the next update on this project. I mean, it's not Look No Computer's Game Boy Mega Machine, but for us it's a really huge project.
Huge.
And if everything goes well, we'll maybe make a PCB that's for sale or something, if you're interested.
Right.
So
But first, take a look at the final product. So stay tuned.
stay tuned, we see you again in 2 weeks. And remember, stay
Stay
curious.
This is my